Hi, and welcome to Mini Maths at Virtual School Victoria, where we do a lot of maths thinking in a little bit of time. Today's topic is mathematical tools that we use to solve problems in everyday life. Spend a moment to think of some mathematics tools that you know of or you use. Did you think of these? Counters. Counters are very closely connected to sticks and stones and twigs and notches in bits of wood and fingers from which our number system has evolved. Counters are helpful because they help us to remember how much we've counted. They help us to prove number facts, like if we have a group of 2 and a group of 3, we can prove that 2 plus 3 equals 5, or we can prove that 2 groups of 3 equals 6. And it's always nice to use counters to make lovely patterns and designs. The next common mathematical tool we use to teach and to learn the place value number system is multi-attribute blocks. Now, most of us would know these as ones, tens, hundreds, and 1,000. But because they're multi-attribute blocks, I can call this a 1. Now, if I call that cube a 1, what would this flat be? It would be 1/10, because I need 10 of those to make one of those. And of course, because it's less than 1, it has to be a fraction. What would these be? These would be 100th, because I need 100 of those to make one of those. And these would be 1,000. And you can see how small a 1,000 is, because I need 1,000 to make one of those. And it also can be 0.1, 0.01, and 0.001. So that is how multi-attribute blocks can be used. A ruler is a great mathematical tool. Lots of ways we can use a ruler: to rule straight lines, to measure lines, to measure height, length and width, and to draw shapes. And let's see how you can use a ruler as a number line. For example, when I was at school, I was not that crash hot at adding like 9s and 8s, but when you learn to use a number line, you actually see how easy it is. Now, when we start at 9, we don't count it because we already have it, but we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if I've counted carefully, 9 plus 8 is 17. Also, if you want to do a subtraction like 14 minus 6, we start at 14, we don't count it because we already have it, and we go minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4, minus 5, minus 6. And if I was counting carefully, the answer is 8. So the ruler is a very useful number line to check those numbers that you're not sure of, and eventually it'll become very easy. The hundreds number charts are usually organised in tens, because that is the basis of our counting system. Now, you can do quite big numbers with that. So let's make 47 plus 33. Let's find 47 plus 10 plus 20 plus 30. I've taken a shortcut there. I didn't count by ones, I counted by tens. And 1, 2, 3. Now, if I started with a number like this, 47 plus 33, I've actually checked it on the number chart and I calculated it as 80, and when I checked it, it ended up at 80. So I've added 30 then 3. That's how I did that one. The other useful tool is a multiplication chart. Let's have a look what that looks like. The numbers on a multiplication chart are organised a bit differently. They're organised in groups, and again, look for the patterns, because that's what maths is good for, is looking and finding patterns. Mathematicians love it. Let's look at the 7 times tables. They can be tricky. 1 7, 2 7s, 3 7s, 4 7s, 5 7s. And if you want to do, say, 7 4s, you count down 4, or you find 4 7s, and there's the answer there. So a really useful chart just to double check how you're going. Another great mathematical tool is a compass. Compasses can be used to draw lovely patterns, to draw circles, and of course circles are also an important part of design and engineering. Here is a protractor. Think about a protractor at a moment. It's got 2 sets of numbers, and it's got lots of angles, and it's got a vertex there. Protractors measure the size or the magnitude of an angle in degrees. So all these numbers are actually degrees. The very basic thing you should know about angles is a right angle is 90 degrees. We'll talk about angles another time. Now, if you want to measure any of these angles, you take this little vertex here and you place it there, and you can see we're measuring that angle, and if I were to drag the protractor over, I know that this angle is greater than 90 degrees, so I use this measuring line. If I was to drag it to this one here, I know it's less than 90 degrees. I would put that point on that point, and I would trace the angle, and I would use the inside line. So the outside and the inside lines are measuring angles that are greater or less than 90 degrees. So you just have to be aware of that and know your angles. And let's have a look at the next mathematical tool, is a set square. Set squares are good for drawing parallel lines, for drawing angles and creating shapes. Some other mathematical tools that are very common, but we're not going to do in depth, is a calculator. And there's lots and lots of things you can do with calculators, but you still have to do your maths, because if you don't use the calculator properly, your brain can't estimate. For example, the answer might really and truly be 240, but if you haven't estimated and know what answer to expect, you would believe the calculator. Most abacuses are organised in groups of 10, and they're used for counting pretty much like we use the hundreds counting charts. Of course, these are measuring instruments for time. They're mathematical tools, and we use these a lot. The measuring jug, the scales, the ruler, and the speedometer and odometer in the car. There are probably many, many more tools that we didn't talk about today, but the important idea is if you take your mathematical tools, look for all sorts of different ways that you can use them, and practice it. Thank you for being with today's session. We use all sorts of maths and all sorts of maths tools every day, and practice using yours. Thank you, and see you next time.